Support for Wrestlezona comes from the Wrestling Guy Store Phoenix, offering wrestling-themed merchandise and collectibles. More information at WGSPHX.com. That is WGSPHX.com. Hope you're having an amazing one, Wrestlezona family, whenever you happen to be tuning in, and welcome back. My name is Lance Reece, your definitive host for the hour. I've been a fan of professional wrestling since I was about 6 years old, begging my parents to buy me action figures ever since I saw videos of Jeff Hardy swanton bombing on YouTube. We have another packed episode for you today, as we here on episode 30 of Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse will cover what's happening in the world of WWE, All Elite Wrestling, the Indies, Japan, and even wrestling here local in the Valley. Stay tuned to hear the results of Wrestle Kingdom 20 and New Year's Dash, as well as some upcoming Wrestlezona coverage of AEW Dynamite and Collision in Phoenix. Also, some amazing local wrestling news, and of course, our iconic 10-bell history. You'll want to stay tuned to 88.7 The Pulse because we have some exciting news and wrestling things coming for you now. Last weekend on January 4th on episode 29 of Wrestlezona, here on 88.7 The Pulse, we left off with the fact that that day was the Wrestle Kingdom 20 pay-per-view for New Japan Pro Wrestling, the 20th installment of a legendary pay-per-view, one which is treated as now the WrestleMania of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And what a fantastic way to kick off pro wrestling in the year of 2026. Of course, that main event saw the final chapter of Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling. That main event in front of a sold-out Tokyo Dome saw Kazuchika Okada defeat Hiroshi Tanahashi in what would be Tanahashi's retirement match for pro wrestling. That match was a classic storytelling of New Japan and the two participants, steeped in the historic rivalry that stretches back over a decade between the two. It was quite the emotional send-off for the ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Okada, who has embraced more of a ruthless persona as of lately, fully developed the Rainmaker to gain the victory over Tanahashi, who was pushing through injury and emotion in his final in-ring performance. After the match, New Japan Pro Wrestling held a tribute ceremony with several legends and longtime rivals paying tribute to Tanahashi's legendary 26-year career. While Okada might have won, the spotlight was definitely on Tanahashi, who had such an influence not just East, but throughout the entire pro wrestling industry. Also within that scope, in the dramatic faction landscape shakeup following Wrestle Kingdom and New Year Dash, the Bullet Club was officially dissolved after 13 years. Yota Tsuji, now double champion, announced the formation of a new stable called Unbound Co., effectively merging the remaining Bullet Club members with other unaffiliated talents. The faction, originally founded in 2013 and one of modern wrestling's most influential stables, will no longer exist under the Bullet Club name, founded by Prince Devitt, now Finn Balor in WWE, all those years ago. Many former members include David Finlay, Gabe Kidd, Yuto Ice, and former PCW-AZ alum Clark Connors, just to name a few, and have now been folded into Unbound Co., while others have moved on or realigned elsewhere. This marks truly an end of an era in New Japan Pro Wrestling faction history and just New Japan Pro Wrestling history in general. The Bullet Club's influence reshaped global wrestling and also the approach to merchandise in that sense. Will Ospreay made a surprise appearance during the Wrestle Kingdom 20 festivities and at New Year Dash on January 5th. Ospreay, who's been recovering from neck surgery as of August 2025, is still not yet cleared to compete, but he provided a health update and made it clear he intends to return to New Japan Pro Wrestling when fully healed. At New Year's Dash, he inserted himself into the picture with his old faction United Empire, attempting to aid in its direction and calling on Callum Newman. Through the interaction hinted at ongoing tensions. Ospreay said he sees a future where he can wrestle in New Japan again, possibly on a dual basis like Konosuke Takeshita once medical clearance arrives. Speaking of, Konosuke, Yota Tsuji defeated Konosuke to become IWGP World Heavyweight Champion and retain the IWGP Global Heavyweight title, making him the dual champion. Aaron Wolf, the Olympic Judo gold medalist, made his wrestling debut, defeating Evil to win the Never Open Weight Championship. Sarai walked away as a double women's champion after defeating Saya Kamitani in a winner-takes-all match. United Empire won a 10-man tag, bridging faction tensions on the card. In the future, Wrestle Kingdom 20 served as both a farewell to one of New Japan's greats and established a rebirth moment for the company, with Will Ospreay posed to return and the dissolution of the Bullet Club but the formation of Unbound Co., there is now a fresh landscape within the company, and that plus all of the connections between All Elite Wrestling, it looks like a great 2026 for the company is inbound. Hopping into the world of All Elite Wrestling, 2 new stars have been confirmed All Elite. The former Jake Something, now known as Jake Doyle, is hashtag All Elite and is poised to join the Don Callis family, as well as Andrade El Idolo is now officially All Elite after some controversial decisions behind his contract following his leave with the WWE. Also, coming up on Wednesday, January 14th, Wrestlezona will be and covering the Dynamite Maximum Carnage event in Phoenix, Arizona at the Arizona Financial Theater, put on by All Elite Wrestling. Announced for that card so far is Darby Allin in a singles match against Pac, as well as Chris Statlander, AEW Women's World Champion, and the Women's World Tag Team Champions of Babes of Wrath, taking on Triangle of Madness in a trios match. Also set is Kenny Omega's return. He has stated earlier his intentions for MJF and the AEW World Championship, and we will find out that Wednesday what happens with Kenny Omega when he returns. And speaking of the Triple B champion, MJF, Bandito won a shot at the AEW World title with the Dynamite Diamond Ring, and he will face the man who won that ring 6 times, MJF, in a singles match from the AEW World Champion MJF taking on Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito. It is not confirmed the matches for Collision that day, as it is a double taping, and we will have both results for both events next Sunday. I find it compelling that my 3rd time covering an All Elite Wrestling event here in Arizona, my home state, is going to be another double taping, as again, my first time was a Dynamite and Collision double taping sometime earlier last year, 2025. Again, also that year in the summer of May, I was able to cover AEW's first visit for Double or Nothing to Glendale at the Desert Diamond Arena, and what an event that was. I mean, I got to go to the media scrum, and you know, within the realm of everything I've mentioned and AEW coming back to Phoenix, I think it is only appropriate that I play the audio clip of when I got to go to the media scrum of Double or Nothing 2025 and ask Tony Khan himself the future of AEW traveling state to state, country to country, and where their ambitions lie for traveling for wrestling. Here's that clip now.
What a night.
Hi, Tony. Lance Reece from Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse. Congratulations on 6 years of All Elite Wrestling. And this Double or Nothing marks a strange transition period of Double or Nothing coming to Phoenix after hosting at Vegas for so many years. What can we expect to see AEW do as far as different locations in the near future?
Well, we've announced already that All Out is coming to Toronto, and it's our first pay-per-view in Canada in a while. Excited to go to Renee's hometown and bring All Out there for the first time. It's our first time taking Forbidden Door to the UK, and it's our first time, of course, bringing that event there. We've got some really exciting things coming. The Aragon Ballroom, I'm very excited about. I've been writing shows called Dynamite since I was 12 years old. Since 1995 is when I came up with the name Dynamite. And my friend, who I traded tapes with, and he lives around Chicago, and he's my oldest friend. I've known him since I was 12. And he would always do his shows in the Aragon Ballroom, my friend Todd. And he wrestled in Windy City Wrestling, and he's a great friend and a great tape trader, and still contributes to AEW. And he would do shows in Aragon Ballroom, and he would call it the Aragon Brawl Room. And I always thought that was cool. And it's going to be a great site for AEW. Of course, we're going to the 2300 arena. I mentioned we did Dean 2 as a tribute to the late, great Dean Rasmussen last night. I'm looking forward to doing Dean 3 in the 2300 arena, as well as Death Before Dishonor and AEW TV. Doing Dean 3 there, I feel like it is going to be the most tape traders per capita in any wrestling show in the history of wrestling television, because we'll also be filming AEW TV there. A lot of really cool venues and things coming up. I'm really excited to go to Glasgow for the first time. And of course, Grand Slam Mexico. We were talking about it. It was great to have Bandito sitting here talking about what it means to him. It means a lot to a lot of us. And it means so much to the wrestlers from Mexico, but also means a lot to a lot of us that are fans of Lucha Libre and have never gotten to go down and work in Arena Mexico. So it means a lot to me. A lot of really cool and exciting venues coming up throughout 2025. I think we've been doing great TV from very exciting venues this year. Great crowds. Tonight was a great crowd. It was our first time doing a pay-per-view in Arizona. One of my all-time favorite moments in AEW happened here, though, when Sting and Darby Allin won the tag team championship in Arizona. And it was so great to bring Double or Nothing here and celebrate 6 years with these great fans in Arizona that have been supporting us and have our first pay-per-view here tonight. So hopefully it sets a standard and also sets an example to all the great fans. If you do a great job showing up for the TV and make moments count like they did for that show, and in particular Sting's championship win with Darby, I think it sets a standard and sets an example. You can get a pay-per-view. And after 6 years, it's our first time doing a pay-per-view in Arizona, but I can promise you it will not be the last. This crowd was awesome. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Khan. It is going to be an absolute honor upcoming to cover Maximum Carnage and Collision. And again, we will have all those details and results for you next Sunday here on Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse. For Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse, this is Lance Reece, and I want to get into the card of Phoenix Championship Wrestling AZ's Live on Broadway, which was yesterday, Saturday, January 10th. That lineup, of course, included a card of Young Money taking on a debuting Fly Death, as well as Freddie Cordova in singles action against Jimmy House, Joey Hendricks versus Jacob East, as well as Enrique Calderon challenging Remy Marcel to regain his Slam U title, John Wolfgang in singles action against Baker Jeffcoat, Lord Draco taking on a debuting Storm in a Lucha Libre showcase, Taylor York challenging for Zamaya's regained championship, as well as Stanley Logan taking on Damon Ace. We will have the full results for PCW's Live on Broadway for you next Sunday. Also in local news and in slight relation to PCWAZ, I can affirmatively announce that January 18th, next Sunday, here on Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse, we will have Charlie Goldberg from Channel 4 News Tucson as a guest on our program. Also within local news, announced so far for IZW's annual monster event at Bull Shooters is a title versus title winner-take-all of Wrestle Drag champion Ocean Avery taking on the IZW heavyweight champion Bryce Saturn. Also, in a championship bout for Amira Squirrel's Wrestle Drag Pride Championship, Bryn Thorne will be challenging for the belt. Again, Miss Paradise will be defending her IZW Women's Championship against a debuting Undead Bride, Sue Young, who is a two-time former TNA Knockouts World Champion. Again, within local news, the Wrestling Guys Store Phoenix will have the Demand Trio of Bishop Khan, Toa Leona, and Ricochet on Tuesday, January 13th for an in-store meet and greet coming up the day before Maximum Carnage here in Phoenix. And also, again, if you want to check out any old articles or coverage of our events, you can on the AEW coverage of Wrestlezona.com, as well as any old articles regarding AEW on 88.7thepulse.com. We have some WWE news coming up for you, as well as another classic theme song. It is probably one of my all-time favorites. Can you guess what it is? Well, you're going to have to wait a bit, because first we got to get into a classic segment of this show, which of course is our 10 Bell History. 10 Bell History. 1. Old school icon, the late great Bruiser Brody, never signed a standard long-term contract with any major wrestling promotion, almost exclusively relying on handshake agreements worldwide. 2. Stan Hansen was nearly deported from Japan after mistaking a tabloid photographer for a fan and legitimately injuring him. 3. The famous Von Erich family claw move was inspired by a legitimate nerve hold that Fritz Von Erich himself learned while stationed in post-World War II Japan. 4. Mark Calloway, known iconically as the Undertaker character portrayed in the WWE, wrestled under a mask in WCW dark matches that never aired, testing a monster lucha concept before WWF inevitably signed him. 5. Ric Flair internationally mispronounced city names early in his career to sound more travel-worn and elite. 6. Raven kept a character diary written entirely in first-person nihilist philosophy. 7. The WWF tested pyro timing using demolition footage from Detroit buildings to sync explosions with wrestler poses. 8. Jushin Thunder Liger once pitched retiring the gimmick via a decapitation angle inspired by Kubaki theater symbolism. 9. El Santo's mask was legally protected in Mexico. Attempting to portray him masked without permission could lead to lawsuits. 10. WCW once seriously planned to make Dusty Rhodes an on-screen cyborg after an angle involving electrocution. Turner Standards vetoed it late. Within WWE news, it has been reported that Logan Paul, a controversial figure in and out of pro wrestling, is now within a full-time contract with the WWE, as well as some move-ups in the roster. Of course, some big ones being Javon Evans, who has now moved up from NXT to Raw. Javon Evans, who is still pretty young, had a good showing in a tag bout with Leon Slater at Saturday night's main event, where John Cena had his retirement match in the main event. He has shown a lot of prospects since signing on with WWE Developmental, and now he is on the main roster of Raw, as well as Trick Williams, who has moved up from, again, NXT to SmackDown, and it was so great to see him on SmackDown and the crowd getting that whoop that trick in, and man, they did not disappoint Trick Williams or that crowd. Again, with the NXT move-ups, we have Obafemi, who was the undisputed NXT champion, of course. He had vacated the title, and he looks to make a main roster debut soon. It is speculated what his involvement in the main roster will be, and if he will have any involvement in the upcoming WrestleMania in Vegas. In terms of TNA wrestling news, I'd like to highlight the fact that BDE has been signed as a wrestler with TNA Wrestling, which is honestly just mind-boggling to me. I'm trying to wrap my head around that. BDE, of course, started as a YouTube creator covering wrestling games like the WWE 2K series, which was games very familiar to me in my childhood. I find it almost inspiring and entirely motivational that someone in the likes of BDE has moved up the ranks of making wrestling content on YouTube and is now a signed wrestler to TNA Wrestling at such a prevalent time in that company's history with all the work they're doing with NXT. And it is just absolutely fantastic to see for BDE, and I hope to see some championships down the line. Who knows, maybe a future X Division champ right there. Just get him more in the ring, and we're going to see great things with him. Well, that wraps up episode 30 of Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse. I'm Lance Reece, and it has been absolutely a blast to do 30 episodes of the show so far, with more to come. Of course, if you've missed any of the past episodes, you can find them archived on 887thepulse.com as podcasts, as well as on Wrestlezona.com and available on YouTube and Spotify. Are there any news, angles, wrestlers you're interested in me interviewing, or theme songs for me to play? Give me a DM on Instagram is where you can find me, at Wrestlezona. Again, this has been Lance Reece with Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse, and we'll see you next Sunday. Until next time. Support for Wrestlezona comes from the Wrestling Guy Store Phoenix, offering wrestling-themed merchandise and collectibles. More information at WGSPHX.com. That is WGSPHX.com.